Welcome. Welcome to the November Verse Virtual reading. I can't believe that the year is almost done. In my head, it just started, and it's kind of a shock to realize it's already almost over. But we've got a terrific reading lined up for you today of interesting, eccentric writers, Hedy Habra, Neil Aitken, and Dave Bonta, all of them adventurous and curious writers who will definitely entertain you as well as feed your poetry addiction. So we're going to switch up the order that I had planned because Dave is having a little trouble with his connection. And in case he disappears, there is a link to his site where you may read his poems in case he gets cut off in the middle. And so I'm going to introduce Dave, and then he can read before he disappears. Okay. Dave Bonta lives in an Appalachian hollow just outside of Tyrone, Pennsylvania. He's the author of several odd books. This is his own assertion, including a collection of dystopian high boom, failed state, a chapbook of banjo poems, which is really terrific. I read it. Breakdown, a poetic journal chronicling the end of winter, Ice Mountain, and a book of cartoons, Words on the Street. But his real work is on the internet, in a long-running literary blog, Via Negativa, shared with Luisa e Gloria and occasional guest writers at Moving Poems, a web archive and magazine devoted to the best poetry videos on the web, and in a daily nature micro-diary called The Morning Porch, among other sites. He shot a lot of very short video poems and has made digital erasure poems out of every entry in the diary of Samuel Pepys. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. I've just read it. But most of all, what he does is go for walks in the woods, considering himself something of a wilderness flaneur. So I give you Dave Bonta.
Dave, you need to unmute.
You're muted, Dave.
Okay, did that take care of it? Yes. Hold on. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
All right. My connection here really sucks tonight. I had hoped better. Sometimes it's like 25 megs per second download, and sometimes like tonight it's like barely one. But we'll get through this. I'm sitting a little far back because unfortunately, I only have bifocals, not varifocals. In order to see the large text on my computer, I pushed it back. And as Robbie mentioned, there is a link in the server. Now, the problem with that link, it's just, you can see I made up a tag for this reading, but they're not in the actual order I'll read them. But it's fun to look at later because you'll see the photos that I posted with it. In many cases, the photos play not exactly ekphrastic, but definitely a prompt role as I walk, look at stuff, and later on try and make a poem. So I'm just going to read these straight through what we get. Settler, an affirmation. I am prey, I am mammal. Pure fear fires my pistons. My eyebrows can pupate. I have outgrown my own hair. Earthbound, descended from the trees, I drink from the gray breasts of clouds. On hind legs, I hone myself to the thinness of a blade of grass, ready for the four stomachs of a cow or the wind whistle. I speak of the devil of dust. In the sticks, everything forks and branches. You can't get there from here unless you go sideways first, like a knight in chess, or a long-tailed weasel hunting in the stilt grass. You must run out of luck or lumber, get saved by a discount preacher behind the barbecue shack, lose an argument with the moss, wonder what horrors lie hidden beneath your feet, wrapped in duct tape, sealed in mason jars, but you learn the new bump and grind of mountaintop drag lines or fracking rigs, the way a chainsaw mutters between screams, how the creek can rise from a lullaby to a roar and wash away all our post-industrial middens, how there's a rambling rose that blooms every June in the small of the back of beyond. The next one's called The Sadness, and this was prompted actually by a drawing by the 20th century Argentinian poet Alejandra Pizarnik. This is from a translation of her French poems published by New Directions that was translated by, sorry, wrong book. This is the Pizarnik, the Galloping Hour French poems, and the photo is here. The Will to Sadness, La Volonté de Tristesse. One ought to remain at least partially buried at all times. Let lost pieces of oneself get eaten by opossums. One must learn to read the paper upside down and backwards. Give names to the flies, but not to the joyful spider. And when one is invited to dance, one must not cling as if drowning. One who is oneself a sort of small salt lake. One must follow decorum as one follows the weather. Everything one knows about rhythm, one learned from the rain. Self-censor. These days, I wear wonder like a broad-brimmed hat. When the moon is dead empty, I try to lose my shadow. I cut what I thought were tethered. They turn out to be roots. When I stop writing on paper, the trees become less hostile. I could swallow what's left of my fire and tend bees. I would write myself out of history, line by painstaking line. Gray matter. Underfoot, the beast, what was once sand now glitters under lichen. After dark, the lunar landscape of it, shivery with crickets, dense with ambiguities, the way bare wood weathers or old snow collects grime, aging in place, lost in a maze of cracks. I have taken my microdose of humility. The high line buzzes with ghosts of power. This next one's called Hollow Folk, which was the title of a really terrible alleged documentary that was really just preparatory for the government to seize land before the creation of Shenandoah National Park by portraying the people who lived there as backwards and primitive. And the whole thing has been taken apart more recently. But anyway, this poem has nothing to do with that other than borrowing the title and the sort of sense of disdain that a lot of people have for, you know, quote, hillbillies or whatever. Anyway, Hollow Folk. Without issue, I can feel the forest thicken within me, build up fuel and hunger for that incendiary spark. Ah, to slash and burn, plow and harrow with my ancestors, or cut down the old giants and replace them with windmills. Deadly flowers scything the air for migrants, our doom laid out like a meal for ravens, fates intertwining like fingers at a lover's leap. A mile and a half up a mountain hollow, under the green banners of the sun. I live above a crawl space, too poor for a cellar. My garden is a banquet for slugs and meadow voles. The wild mountain mint hums with solitary bees. And this next poem is the one I held up the wrong book for. The Farooq said, let us believe in the beginning of the cold season. This is a new translation also from New Directions by Elizabeth T. Gray Jr. Highly, highly recommended. It's easily as good as Sholeh Wope's also excellent book of translations. And in honor of the women of Iran who are trying to have themselves a revolution, good luck. This is poem beginning with a line by Farooqzad. Apologies to Persians for murdering her pronunciation of her name, I'm sure. Let us believe in the ruined gardens of imagination. Even in autumn rain, there's still such radiance. Leaves underfoot whisper my wishbone song, really just a rhythm imposed on the slow fires of decay. But now church bells make for a glistening listen. The dead have nothing and everything to do with the emptiness of numbers. Their carnival is upon us, scarlet oaks glowing on a mountainside of charred pine stumps, witch hazels dangling sun-colored sex flags, and a woodpecker
Well, looks like we lost him. He got most of the way through. He only had about 2 more minutes to go. There he is, he's back, sort of. Dave, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, so.
Hello?
Yeah, why don't you do a couple more minutes? Couple more minutes here.
And just for the sake of bandwidth, Dave, for the sake of bandwidth, how about turning off your video so we can hear you read?
I think we're better now. Something was. I'm sorry. Where had I gotten to? Where had I gotten to when it cut out, folks?
I don't remember. Sorry.
I will.
You stopped in the middle of on the line about the woodpecker, Dave.
Okay, thank you. The line about the woodpecker. Ah, yes. The witch hazels dangling sun-colored sex flags and a woodpecker sounding like a clown on amphetamines. My phone can find the bleakest news in seconds. A shaggy mane mushroom dissolves into ink. And I have just one more here. This is if we can trust in the internet for one more, although I think
just barrel
whatever
through.
It was trying to download. Yeah. All right. And I've done a number of longer poems that what I call walking poems, just sort of, based on walks I take. It's pretty obvious. I'm going to close with one of those. And this is a spot near here, going up the side of the Allegheny Front, which is sort of like the Rocky Mountain Front, only vastly lower, geologically significant feature right to the west of us. Anyway, this Bell's Gap Old Rail Trail, it's like the third poem I've written on this very same walk, which is one of the pleasure of doing this kind of poem time. You're sort of not just, you're revising the poem, you're sort of not just revising poems, but revising your whole view of a place. It's a very fun process. So this is called Timelines. And I also got to give a shout out to my brother Mark for leading a geology field trip for our local Audubon Society about a week before I wrote this, which, as you'll see, was a huge influence. Timelines. And the deer came on long lines between the trees and clashed antlers with a sound old and dry as the wind. Gnats danced as if some had returned one day only. Everything must go through a gray mist that may have been in my head. I measured the mountain with my body, pacing it out. I walked among birches, nothing but blank pages. Overtook milkweed, giving birth to clouds. Looped past the wild grapevines, their convolutions laid bare. Following the bed of an old coal railroad, with the leaves mostly down, saw far below the remains of a car wheels up among deer-tongue grass, abandoned halfway through the age of fishes, when seas saved the mud of ancestral mountains for 62 million years until a mass extinction. Getting younger as I climbed into the age of amphibians and giant dragonflies, pressed into rock by later layers, now sloughed off, and the horizon opened like a rose on ever more mountains. And that's all I have, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave, for persevering and for coming out here, at least virtually. Our next reader is Hedy Habra. Hedy is a poet, artist, and essayist. She's the author of 3 poetry collections from Press 53, most recently, The Taste of the Earth, 2019, which was the winner of the Silver Nautilus Book Award, an honorable mention for the Eric Hopper Book Award. He in Heliopolis, winner of the Best Book Award, and Under Brushstrokes, which was a finalist for the Best Book Award. And I guess that's the name of it, Best Book Award. Doesn't say from whom. And the International Book Award. Her story collection, Flying Carpets, won the Arab American Book Award's honorable mention and was finalist for the Eric Hopper Award. A 20-time nominee for the Pushcart Prize and Best of Net, and recipient of the Nazim Hikmet Award, her multilingual work appears in numerous journals and anthologies. And I will put up her website, which is in the intro here. So go ahead.
Okay,
Hedy.
thank you, Robbie, for this wonderful introduction, and thank you all. And I guess I'll read a few poems from my latest collection, The Taste of the Earth. It's a memoir in poems. It's a way to recapture roots and origins. I'm from Egypt and Lebanon, and I chose to paint the Eye of Horus on the cover because the Eye of Horus for ancient Egyptians is a very important amulet, and each part of the Eye of Horus symbolizes one of the 6 senses. And a very large section of the book is titled Meditations over the Eye of Horus, and it's divided along those 6 senses. So I'll start with the title poem, which is The Taste of the Earth. 2 fawns cross the creek. One of them pauses, linked to his mirror reflection by the tip of his tongue. Parallel worlds merge on the fault line of a folded image. A musical phrase sticks to your skin. The wind espouses ripples. Liquid dunes lick the shoreline, give moisture to wildbrush, blown over seeds and thoughts. Iridescent hummingbirds hover over purple iris blooms. The shore is faithful to the stream's first touch. Like first love, it nourishes tendrils rising into a green flame. Never forgotten like the taste of the earth. A desert thirsts for an oasis. A fawn melts into the music of a fable. A gazelle New memories map rhizomes, twisting, anchoring us farther with each shoot, spreading from our birthplace to everywhere we've lived, to where we live now. And does it make a difference if the root remembers? So the book is divided in 5 sections, and some of them are about Lebanon and Egypt. One of them is an Abecedarian, Meditations over Phoenician Letters. I was really intrigued by the Phoenician letters and their the way they echo the word, the same letter sound in Arabic and words in Arabic. So I wrote these very short poems. I'll read just a few. Aleph, for ox, marking furrows in parallel lines, erect like that first letter initiating the article. Al for Aleph, the one and only of its kind, encompassing all meanings. Beit, bait for house as bosom. Womb, al-bait, where families gather around the homemade meal cooked over a hearth, often bearing a burning dot under the cast iron tray. Gimel, for camel, ships of the desert, el-gamal, battling dunes as waves head bent, back curved under chest, filled with gold and spices, eyelids heavy with the secrets of Timbuktu. Yod for yed, a hand for lovers hand in hand, for building, cooking, painting, hand shaken in a peace agreement, asking for a daughter's hand, granting her hand. Would a girl's hand always belong to a man? And echoing the meditations over Phoenician letter, I have the meditations over the Eye of Horus. But from the Lebanese section, I'd like to read one poem. It's an anima metodi form. It's a Singaporean form, and it's titled Recurrent Dream. I was raised in Egypt, of Lebanese origin, lived in Lebanon also, went after we had to leave on account of the civil war, lived in other places in Europe, and then we've been here 40 years. So the recurrent dream has been with me for decades. Recurrent dream. Anxiety erodes my sleep night after night as memories and fantasies collide. Heartbeats merge, projected onto a screen at full speed, till my heart loses its elasticity, unable to bounce back. A dull horizon appears, flattening waves and desert dunes, a serene landscape without ups and downs, nor a change of seasons. Till the screen erupts ablaze, we enter a country torn by civil war. Trapped in winding alleys with checkpoints, danger lurking in every corner. I'm back wherefrom I fled decades ago, and now I'm lost, dream after dream, in the wrong neighborhood. I can't ask for a ride home. Home is the enemy. Can't find my way back to safety. Desperate, I realize I'm getting closer to the straight line that accompanies silence. I'll just read, thank you, a couple of excerpts from the meditations over the Eye of Horus, which consists in series of haibuns and litanies. So the first one would be smell. My friend Mona would bring to class her boyfriend's handkerchief soaked in Old Spice. Shem, the deferred touch of a lover's approach. Or else, how could the pungent smell of a coat hanging on a hook, reeking of frying emanations, cause a body to ache with longing? And wasn't during his Egyptian campaign that Napoleon wrote to Josephine, begging her not to bathe as he was on his way? Have we lost the animal? My cat sniffs dirty socks and underwear, mouth agape, with a mesmerized stare. I knew each of my babies' smell. The skin remembers, the scent of essential oils, an invisible presence. Another excerpt from Smell. Bakhur, incense swirls rising in sign language to ward off the evil eye. Ancient Egyptians burned incense daily, a different bouquet for each magical spell or incantation. In funerary rites, the soul of the deceased ascended to heaven by means of that ritual smoke, thought to be the sweat of gods. And isn't there godliness in the tree's offerings? When one thinks of the pain inflicted to the bark's skin, each incision exuding a pearl-shaped tear? My dada, Mariam, loaded a brass pot, mabkhara, with coals and resins. She mumbled prayers and litanies, making circular movements in every room, lingering in the hallway under Mary's Greek icon, lit by an oil lamp. Volutes of blue smoke, feather-like fingers disperse, ascending spirals. So I will, if time permits, share screen and read from my new collection that is an ekphrastic collection due next year. I have 2 or 3 poems by Remedios Varo, and I'll start with the first one, inspired by Le Vagabond, The Vagabond, by Remedios Varo. So that inspired the prose poem. Or how can we ever cut down to the bare essentials? He kept retreating from room to room, feeling the weight of all the furniture and mementos staring at him like deceased relatives. It was as though the house wrapped layers of time around him, confining him inside a pod about to burst open. For a while, he'd only use his bedroom and the kitchen. He eventually retreated to the sunroom. Its walls lined with bookshelves comforted him as he lay on the wicker couch opposite the bay window. He soon realized he needed fewer meals and only one change of clothes. Feathers seemed to grow out of his bones, filling him with a desire to embrace the movements of the wind. He tried to get rid of plants, of his archived papers, of the photos that couldn't find their place in the abandoned albums. He sorted out the books he knew he'd never read or reread. Finally, the day came when, unable to break all ties, he clung to his tabby, the photo of a woman, a purple-lipped Cattleya, a few books, anything he could hide under his strong wings, slammed the door and left. So I'll just show the picture again of the painting. And the next painting is The Souls of the Mountain by Remedios Varo. It's a pantoum. Or did you ever wonder what it's like to have hot flashes? Imagine a nebulous landscape covered with budding volcanoes. See yourself emerge from one of its peaks, head heavy with slumber. Gasping in the rarefied air, you enter a liminal space where unlucky few, forever trapped past conception, are condemned to parthenogenesis. See yourself emerge from one of its peaks, head heavy with slumber. Think of your skin as a primed canvas, permeable to imprints, forever trapped past conception, condemned to parthenogenesis. See how the change of seasons leaves indelible marks all over your body. Think of your skin as a primed canvas, permeable to imprints. You yearn for the sight of a veil billowing on a deserted deck's caravel. See how the change of seasons leaves indelible marks all over your body, like the sfumato created by the passage of a candle over moist paper or canvas. You yearn for the sight of a veil billowing on a deserted deck's caravel. Suddenly, a cooling current lassos drifts unfurling into ashen flames, like the sfumato created by the passage of a candle over moist paper or canvas, or a haze hiding a palimpsest of thoughts carried by wind-swept fumes. Is there a room for the last one? Is there time to read the last one or not?
No.
Okay, then that's I'm gonna stop share.
Okay, thank you.
Will be it for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last feature for today is Neil Aitken. Neil is the author of 2 books of poetry, Babbage's Dreams from Sundress, 2017, and The Lost Country of Sight, published by Anhinga in 2008, the winner of the Philip Levine Prize. He's the founding editor of Boxcar Poetry Review. Are you publishing that again, Neil?
No, we closed partway through the pandemic. It was a project that reached an end, and I'm getting ready to launch a different project.
Okay. And his poems have appeared in the Detroit Journal, American Literary Review, Crab Orchard Review, Ninth Letter, and elsewhere. After completing an MFA in creative writing from UC Riverside and a PhD in literature and creative writing at USC, he moved back to Canada in 2019, where he continues to work as a creative writing coach and manuscript editor. You can visit him online at his website, and I'll put that, when he starts reading, I'll put that into the chat. I should have done it before, sorry. So go ahead and read it. I mean.
Thank you, Robbie, and thank you, Hedy and Dave, for reading with me as well. It's a wonderful experience to be here, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some poetry tonight. I debated whether to read from my already published books, but I felt that perhaps I would launch into work that is part of a current unpublished manuscript, and most of which I hope fits within the larger parameters or the idea of ekphrastic. The first one, I mean, I'm inspired by many different things, mathematics, as well as the natural world and the mechanical world. Approaching infinity. Pre-calculus, we considered the limits of things, trying to determine what value an expression held at a given point in time. Watch the arc, the trajectory, the slope of the line, the teacher would say. We'd nod, look both ways, observe where it had been, where it was headed, what to do when it broke down, failed to arrive, nothing over nothing. What to make of infinity spread wide over the void, over an unknown field. This year, my father approaches 60 again, as he has every year for the past decade, his body a void within a void, a scattering of variables they could not solve in time. From where we stand, the future remains an unworkable approximation. The pencils grow silent. I hear geese far above us winding their way south. If I turn my head just right, I might see my father now, a thin shadow trembling at the edge of view, that almost imperceptible hesitation before the second hand moves, before this moment is carried into the next, the sky inching toward night, the space between us, the distance from one dying star to another. Thank you. I'm part Chinese, and so I think a lot about, I learned Mandarin when I was very young, forgot it, relearned it. So my fascination with translation, with language, with things that fall between languages runs through some of my work as well. And the other thing you need to know is that this poem has reference to the fact, the odd weird, magical, and troubling. I don't know. Almost mythic fact that my father passed away on my birthday. So every year I look forward and backwards because of that. He passed away from ALS, from Lou Gehrig's disease. So this poem makes reference to that and makes reference to the fact, well, the poem will explain the rest of it. 44. Halfway to wherever I am bound, I find myself lost in a dark wood, the path through gone, and no guide before me. The earth beneath me, a shifting sea of leaves churning in the wind, and my coat not quite heavy enough for the chill, still smelling faintly of the one who wore it last, years before we laid him to rest, before his things became mine, a gift I had not asked for, though it fell on the anniversary of my birth. And now, every year, like this one, I look forward and back and see my unfolding days through the lens of my father's past. It's not exactly grief, but somehow still akin to sorrow, the echo of loss. In another language, this year sounds unfortunate to the ear, the doubling of death and dying, a mirror that sits midway through a life, or perhaps a labyrinth where one might stand at a juncture, in one hand a torch, in the other a wadded paper ball filled with unspoken names, how it trails behind, unfolding itself into a ribbon that rises into the darkness, binding itself to something I cannot see. Let's see. Refusing the dark. Tonight, driving home through what might have been fog or low cloud, I find myself singing out of habit, or perhaps out of some antique sorrow I've forgotten, nestled in the silent space between ribs. The car before me hidden, a mystery, like the road itself, all but buried in rivered gray. Through the windshield, I can see the lights set high over the freeway, burning like great wheels of fire, and yet nothing like the voice of God enters here, only the lingering whisper of pavement and tires, that old lullaby full of disappearing and turns. How things merge unexpectedly. In the wind, the bright echo of stars, the animal dead congregating at the side of the road, their eyes fixed in the past. Everything slows down at the curve, every heart slips a gear, and the lungs give out at last. The body empties itself in such moments, as mine does now, in a single note that trails behind like the memory of fire. The summer that the hills burned and the sky, black as spilled ink, fills with the names of all I did not know I loved, of everything that comes to the lips to refuse the dark. You might hear the slight nod to Nazim Hikmet's things that I did not know I loved, right at the end there. Yeah, how are we doing here? My father was a librarian and a family historian and a collector of books. So my own obsessive collecting of books comes from him. And after his passing, I inherited some of those books. Searching my father's books, I find he has traveled lightly, covered much ground, but left no more than the sparest of lines, the scribbled notes, cribbed from professors past. Their stories also ended, the road carrying on. More than wild beast, he leaves a faint trail, a mark here, a path blazed among the trees, his passing almost invisible. What meaning he spies, sleeping in between the inked wake of others, he has left largely undisturbed, reveals nothing of Macbeth's soul, Hamlet's fear, even what he writes of the great white whale, but cryptic signs, half phrases, everything buried in the pale depths of what remains unsaid. Why have I held onto these talismans, bound tokens of our shared love of the written word? What literature does, what it holds silent between lines, in the margins scarcely seen, the faint trace of another mind before mine, imperfect, grasping, and yet nonetheless pressing on into the deep forest, the life half journeyed the river half forded, and still everywhere abounding in ghosts. And I'll close with this last poem entitled After. I don't recall what we did that summer, other than carry ourselves from place to place with the memory of my father rattling about and my heart grown empty, like an old house forgotten in the prairie, just a shell exposed to the wind and storms. We crossed the plains again, the car a swiftly hurtling silence, my mother staring at the emptied road, her eyes scanning for a rogue deer. I could only see the ghostly drifts of snow, not snow, just heat and vapor, the barely visible, the never was or already gone. At the heart of the trip, there's a long stretch of open nothing, a sigh of sorts, what my body does now, even years later. There's only words, only the wind and the sun and the fields, only the towns on the verge of forgetting everything. My mother says nothing here. I say nothing as well. We lay our nothing side by side. We stare into the blankness. I think of my father. I think of his grave, of the earth, of the body vanished into flame, of the dust and ash, of the way language is a vapor, memory an evaporation, or perhaps only a sublimation. How we don't see it happen, that final shift of states, the way words become shuttered cities or ghosts, or just the shadows burned into surfaces. After the world ends in brilliant light, how in the perfect darkness, fish move sightless, their hearts still beating. Thank you.
Beautiful work. Have you finished the manuscript yet?
No, I'm writing incredibly slowly through this manuscript.
That's okay. That's all right.
I'm working on an opera actually right now instead. So I'm trying to get back to the poetry when I can.
No moss growing on you, for sure. All right, thank you, all three of you. I really enjoyed having you, your diverse poems and visions of the world. And if I'd been thinking, I would have asked Louisa also to weigh in, and perhaps she can take my place on the open mic at the end of the reading. And we'll close with her if she is okay with that. Okay, terrific. Well, thank you so much. And now we have an open mic that I know some of you are happy to read in. I'm going to change the order from the website just a little so that our first reader will be Dick Westheimer. And a reminder before you read that it's 5 minutes or 2 short poems, whichever comes first. Okay, thank you.
Hello, what a wonderful, wonderful mix of poets. Thank you, Robbie and James, for putting this together, and the poets for reading. This first poem is called 404 Error. I really didn't quit Twitter. I slow rolled it, popped open the app for a few minutes at the end of the day, like I would a Bud Light or ice cream I'd sneak before bed. And sometimes a cookie or 3, which I had quit too. A changed man, I tell you, a new me. And then Elon showed up. It turns out he was as good at Twitter as I was at small engine repair. I once stripped the linkage between throttle and governor, trying to fix an engine revving issue. And while it's unfair to say I was an idiot, the thing did run out of control. One piston quit and the other didn't quite take the load. Nothing Gurney, my mechanic, couldn't fix, though the grass kept growing while he did his thing. It was not the first time I'd amused Gurn, and not the last, which is to say, who can look away from DIYers who fuck things up? Like me, and Elon, and sure enough, his fixing looks a lot like me shooting heptane into the carburetor as I stand back and watch the engine wind and spit spare parts out the sides. Only with the tweet machine, its employees hitting the streets, at real Jesus verified at last, blue check fakes taking down names, N-words galore, ad buyers heading for the door. And all that was before company IT security folks heard the gears grind and walked out, leaving the door open behind them. So here I am, scrolling my feed in between getting these lines down and throwing back Oreos washed down with Edie's pralines and cream, me dreaming I'll real-time read that one last tweet that sends the whole damn machine on fire. And this one, in a much different vein, is 10,000 blackbirds and one bright star. 10,000 blackbirds cling to the bare sycamore limbs, gabble in gorgeous discord at the setting sun. Their cries spill into the late autumn sky, rustle the dry leaves at my feet with the latest flock gossip. They bray about where water can be found, squabble like spouses about travel plans. Fly, say the restless. Stay, 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 the weary call back. A quarrel of crows, the glossologists should call it. I call it the urgency of fall, and feel my own squalling mind recede into a browned flower of doubt. I ache to go back inside, curl up into a ball all winter, practice the art of depression, fall into the smallest part of me. When suddenly, by silent command, the bare-limbed tree looses its grip on the chatterers. They blossom into an undulate cloud, mesmer as one roiling south as the settling night draws me out to wander the neighbor's field, followed since spring. The great god Jupiter carves its brilliancy through the pall of fading light. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dick. It's always good to hear from you. Our next reader in the correct order is Gary Grossman. Are you here, Gary?
Yeah, I am. My computer doesn't always want to do what I tell it to do. So this poem is called Blessings. 5:30 a.m., November 8th, and my yard owl, a barred male, has woken me with his high reverb, "Who cooks for me?" Or perhaps it was the full moon, last night's eclipse, looking like an abandoned pumpkin hanging on the black vine of sky. Most likely it was the fall back to standard time. Old body, slow to adjust, sleep elusive once you've woken. Maybe that should be called re-sleep, while the sparse gray hairs on my arm are roused by the cold emptiness of our room. My wife visiting her siblings -1 across the continent. And I could kvetch about missing her, a bit of me gone. Together 40 years, it feels like the solid part of my smile has faded these last few days. But then I consider the sister-in-law who passed 1 month ago, and what a blessing it is to watch the moon turn from silver to orange, hear that owl, unfulfilled but still calling, feel the hair on my arm stand up in the chill of our November bedroom. And this next one is kind of echoes some of the themes that Neil talked about. It's called The Rhythms of Various Bodies. Celestial globes rise and set, our bodies stepping to the daily waltz of sun and moon, circadian, the 24-hour rhythm, forming daily, monthly, and annual cycles. Not tree or fish, Our yearly growth rings are unseen. First cycle known as monthly. The uterine lining waxing and waning, painting the moon carmine with tears or joy. As pulse, blood tension, and body warmth dance with light and dark, sleep and waking. Our life cycle begins helpless, then learning, then doing, sliding back to helpless, then quiet, finally, the last breath. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a little slow sometimes on the uptake. I enjoyed those very much. Thank you, Karen. Michelle Rule.
Hi. Thank you. It's my first time here, so I'm a little nervous, but thank you so much.
Welcome. Yeah, be comfortable.
So I'm coming to you from Canada, British Columbia, where we have a bit of snow, and yeah. So anyway, the first poem that I wanted to read is called Confinement. I plunge my shovel into the dirt, try to dig my way out of confinement. But unlike the birds who flit in and out of this green cage of towering pines, I find no escape. Watching as water fills the desperate hole, drowning worms, while the bees in their obsession seem content to drone on amongst the cosmos. I am jealous of their wings. Thank you. And then the second one I have for you is called Attached. Winter's chill runs through me as I watch the world from my bedroom window. Summer's flowers, skeletons in the garden, their warmth and vibrancy long return to the earth. Dark arms of trees bare across gray skies provide no shield or solace. Sounds of the city silenced by a thick smother of snow. The quiet is piercing. A single flutter has me mesmerized, one leaf still attached to its bough, a final nod to life. I wait for it to fall. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. It's good to have you. I hope that you'll attend every month. We have such a interesting group of poets that read on the open, and many wonderful features. So we welcome you to the community. Our next reader, I'm not sure if she's here because I haven't seen her, but if Anita Larrick is here. Are you here, Anita? I don't think you are. All right, on to the next one. Janet Ruth Heller, are you here? No, you're not here either. Then Rose.
I'm here.
Yeah, I know.
I'm here. Okay, I'll read from a book that is about to come out in about a month or so. And it's this one. It's called Saudade. And Neil was talking about between languages. He might have meant it in a different way, but saudade is one of those words that can't be translated, not really. So I've written a whole titled poem about it, and then the whole book actually is filling the poem with these things that make up saudade. What is saudade? A moment that passed like a paler shade of spring, like the knowledge of an inevitability, the vague promise of repeat, the echo of something that never was, a butterfly wing that may have brushed your cheek, dreaming of indolence, expecting the first rains on dry fields, not quite hearing the last lark before the autumn winds, the first smell of snow, the never-ending final summer dance. softest touch of his hand on yours, the death of an infatuation. Your evanescent youth, a strange bliss in your longing, fear of fulfillment, praying for the becalmed sea of inertia, celebration of absence. You carry a sharp, merciless switchblade of stainless grief. And the next one is the first one, Firestone, actually published of mine in Verse Virtual, and I've been very close to it ever since. So I thought, here's to Firestone. I read your first one that you liked of mine. A pilgrimage. In Rosh Hanikra, I look across the Lebanon to Lebanon. Below me is the sea. I pick up a stone and let it bounce against the rocks. The Sea of Galilee cuts me with contrition. I want to atone for sins to which I feel fettered by blood. The Jordan washes the dusty crust of the Negev from my skin, and the Dead Sea lifts my burden. Haifa receives me in a language I understand. Bethlehem's brittle alliances don't inspire. My friend rejects the kippah and holds my hand. And Yom Rishon is the first day. Thank you.
It seems that I have not gotten the correct open mic list. So if I haven't mentioned you so far and you're a member of the Verse Virtual community, tell me, open your mic and tell me that. I know that Neil has, because I just asked him if he wanted to read me. And he said he was already on the list. So any of the other of you,
so
Mary?
Robbie, what I have was I was first, then Michelle, then yes. Anita, then Dick, then yes. Janet, then you, then yeah. Rosemary, and finally Neil. Do you want me to read those over again?
Yeah, what's the last one?
Neil Creighton.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So two of the folks were not here. And we're going to replace the last, Neil is going to read now. And then Louisa, but I have room for one more person who's in the community.
And Janet's on the list too, or is she not here?
She's not here.
Well, you could read, Robbie.
Okay, I'll read, and Louisa will read. If no one minds, then I'm okay. So it's your turn then, Neil. Go ahead. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here again. It's a time I can make it. Wilpena Pound. Lines of low cliff rise abruptly out of arid flatness, orange in sunlight, but purple in shadow. The scree slopes are dull with stone and desert plant. There is music here, an uncompromising melody, abrupt rhythms, discordant tone. What is this song echoing through these stern ranges? Wilpena Pound has a single exit. A trickle of water feeds a few muddy ponds. Thickets of huge red gum, artesian fed, stand sturdily upright or lie tangled in patterns that momentary torrents of raging water, briefly and angrily tearing through the gully, heap along the now near dry riverbed. The music here is counter melody, lyrical, lush, quiet, secluded. an interval of contrast before the main theme insistently and irresistibly sounds from tumbled rock, thorny desert plants, and uncompromising lines of cliff. I climb to St. Mary's Peak. Southwards stretches the amphitheatre of Wilpena Pound, enclosed by its vast circle of quartzite walls. A tenuous scratch of track winds into the pound. Northwards, the ridged lines of rugged mountains run in parallel formation to the far horizon, their boundaries marked, their height and shape fixed countless millennia before the brief moments of conquering Alexander or Sennacherib or lawmaker Moses or wandering Abraham. I descend, cross the saddle, and walk beneath the orange cliffs. The air is pure, the wind crisp, the song of the Flinders clear. Soon the evening star will add its harmony, and later the stars will join in chorus. The great amphitheatre and its circle of low cliffs mock pettiness, ambition, vaingloriousness. But I, a speck in time, moving through changelessness, lift up my eyes to those low cliffs and the towering sky, and hear not defeat or transience or folly, but intimations of the timelessness of eternity. I've got another one too, short. It's another celebration of Earth. It's called Temple. I suppose it could be called Cathedral, but I preferred the metaphor of temple. Temple. The nave is fields of flowers. The aisles are snow and forest trees. The transept is rippling wind on grass. The altar is the rivers, tides, and seas. The stairwells are mighty mountains leading to the attic sky, and music everywhere resounds from wave, bird, storm, and soft wind sigh. The floating dome is decorated with ever-changing hue of billowing white, scudding grey, or deep ethereal blue. And fleetingly, in east, then west, comes a stained glass blaze of light, after which the dome transforms into star-studded velvet night. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. It's good to hear from you again. I'm sorry that our readings are usually in the middle of the night for you. Okay, Lou. Well, what would you say? I didn't hear you.
Just said it. They are usually in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. or something. So it's really nice to be able to come along again. Thanks, everyone.
Louisa, it's your turn. You're muted.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me now? And I want to thank Robbie for generously including me in tonight's open mic. Thank you, Neil, Hedy, and Dave for a beautiful reading, and to everyone else who has read. I'm going to read two poems which are part of a new manuscript in progress. I'm trying to put together a group of poems that look partly at, well, the city in which I grew up in the Philippines, which was designed by Chicago architect Daniel Burnham. And some of the themes that I look at include how intimate personal experiences and family trauma stemming from the loss of land, property, and physical home are connected to these larger historical narratives. So my work in progress is called American Pastoral. And as many of you know, I think you know my daily writing practice. And as it happens, today is the 12th year anniversary of writing At Least a Poem a Day. And I have Dave Bonta to thank for sharing generously space on Via Negativa for these shenanigans. After leaving, things you never forget reside somewhere inside your bones. The span of a cord, the way water tastes when it first shoots out of the mouth of a rusted iron pump. Razor bite of acid applied to a wart. The near human scream of a goat awaiting its death under guava trees. Everyone comes from imagined origins. Land of dark sugar hills, land of multiplying gravestones. You can clean window panes with balled up newsprint, and their shine will be like cathedral glass dipped in milk. This is your history, and you bind it in ink and crosses. You were born in its shed, but you left for an unholy land. Whatever you erect in its image becomes an orchard where you'll spend the rest of your days like a bride who can't return until every fruit is charred or picked clean. You decide to live in the present, that is, between the crescent's horns. Next, last poem. Portrait of the Future as Reversal. Read porch as reproach, aperture as rapture. Spring has come and gone. Now the crepe myrtles shed weak fireworks. A haze thickens in the heat. Don't you also tremble at the thought of a future which shows its teeth, then backs away, swallowing itself? For every discovery in the world, a list of side effects we're only just starting to feel. Some things haven't changed. Cast off clothes sail around the world in ships packed with weapons and lumber. Viewed from afar, the horizon could still be an edge. It took us forever to imagine it as a place from which we'd fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Louisa. I hope that sometime later in the year we can have you come and feature. That would be great. And yeah, maybe you can talk Angela into featuring with you. I couldn't do it. Okay, I've got a couple of poems. I'm going to start with one that was recently published in One Art. It's called What We Made of Them. When my son was 3 or 4, raccoons inhabited the sewer outside our house. Every night, they'd line up in the dark opening to the storm drain, a neighborhood as populous as ours, eyes glowing like stars gone nova. My son called them cycorns. I don't know where he got the word, but it suited them, lurking as they did close to the dumpster, snarling if we threatened to come near, choosing the delicacies they most preferred from torn plastic garbage bags full of wilted heads of lettuce, flaccid carrots, boiled beef stew they extracted with their agile fingers. My neighbor came home one day from the grocery to find a raccoon and her kids standing in the kitchen. They had entered through the dog door, foraged in the pantry for the 10-pound bag of kibble, ravaged the fruit bowl. She had to call a wildlife specialist to remove the raccoon family from the house before they shredded the sofa, filled the place with fleas. How far these urban-dwelling raccoons were from the meticulous and clever creatures I had seen on nature films with pointed elven faces washing up before they ate. Orchards and woods are mostly gone now. Sewers serve as raccoon freeways, shortcuts to the closest park or vacant lot. For my second poem, you can either have Thanksgiving or apocalypse. I know for some people there's not much of a difference depending on their family and how they feel about cooking. But which would you rather have? Raise your hand for Thanksgiving. So it looks like apocalypse it's going to be. All right, the apocalypse one is shorter. It's called Multiverse, and it has an epigraph from Joy Harjo. I was afraid of the dark because then I could see everything. In dreams and fantasies, I visit other versions of our world. In some, the sun's gone supernova, burnt out like a briquette in a spent grill. Or worse, nothing's left, just a blank gap where our planet, like a pulled tooth, used to be. Everything we made is gone. Our monuments and art, acts of hope we dreamed would last forever. Some new species we can't imagine dominates the world we claimed. I shouldn't mind that. It's us I'm longing to escape. Our human urge to uproot all that's beautiful, bulldozing ancient redwoods, building roads where mountains used to rise. And on that note, thank you. Thank you for being here today. And thank you to our features, Dave, Hedy, and Neil. And thank you to everyone at the open mic and to the whole community of First Virtual and poetry at large. And we'll see you next month when we have a whole new interesting group of folks to read for us. And I hope that some who haven't been here before will come back. All right, so long.
See you, Robbie.
Thank you, Robbie.
Hello, Robbie, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And now your internet looks perfect, Dave.
Yeah, it's been great ever since I read.
Isn't that the way it is? So we're going to have Joan in a few months. She's going to be here in January with Suzanne Lummis and Kareem Ta'ar. So it'll be an interesting reading too. Every month is interesting. You never know what's going to come up.
Dave,
So,
Dave, do you know where Alfred, New York is? Just the other side of the state line from where you were. Alfred, New York. No, it's near Corning. I spent some time over there.
Corning is.
Yeah, it's too small to be on the map, but it's one of those small places in upstate New York that's part of the Appalachian area.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you know, I don't even know Pennsylvania all that well. We're very regional here.
All right.
Anyway,
well,
nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Robbie, I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you, Robbie.
Bye. Thank you.